Hi, it's Jenny from Refresh Living, and I'm going to be showing you how to make raised garden beds from cedar deck boards and cedar 2x4. So it'll end up looking something like this. In the description, you can find links to the cut lists as well as the products I used in this project. To make one L-shaped bed, you'll need 6 8-foot cedar boards. Then you'll cut them down into 2 boards that are 4 feet in length. You'll have 6 boards that are 2 foot in length. You'll have 2 8-foot boards and then 2 boards that are 6 feet. And then I took 2 2x4 cedar planks and cut them down into stakes that were about 2 feet tall, which you'll see at the top of that photo. Assembling the garden beds is a pretty easy process. Basically, you're just going to attach your 1x6 cedar boards to the 2x4 stakes by screwing them in at each of the corners. A couple quick notes. I used exterior deck screws to attach everything together, and then I chose to use cedar boards since this is a garden bed and is going to be used for food that we eat. I preferred to use something all natural rather than preserved green wood, and cedar doesn't have any of that extra stuff in it, so, and it's still rot resistant, so that's the option that I chose to go with. When screwing your boards into the 2x4 boards, you just want to make sure to drill pilot holes first and then go through and screw them in. It just helps the wood not to split. And be sure to use wood glue at this step too. Put some glue in between the boards. I forgot to show you in the video, but that just helps to hold it all together. The second layer is put on just the same as the first by screwing in those 1x6 boards into the 2x4 posts. I used wood shims to just help have the gap be consistent along all of the edges, and it also held it in place for me while I screwed everything in. You can see that this was a one-woman job, sorry. I was able to do it all by myself without really needing any extra hands. Just make sure you're working on a flat surface so then the top of your garden bed will be level. To install the garden beds, we dug holes where the stakes would sit and then use that to help level out the beds. You can see in this photo we're still working on getting everything level, and this was just kind of the first time setting them in place. Be sure to check out the other video that I'll link at the end of this tutorial of the best way to fill new raised garden beds and how to replenish your garden beds each spring. Here are the garden beds. We just planted them today, and so the next step is to put the fence around the outside so that the animals don't get in. So to make the fence, I'm just going to attach 2x2 posts along the edges and then put some sort of mesh. I haven't figured out what type yet. And then there'll be a gate that I'm going to build here, and then another one at the other entrance. To install the fence supports, I just screwed the 2x2 posts into the garden bed at the same places where the 2x4 post is on the inside of the garden bed. So basically at each of the corners and then also in the middle of the garden bed. Of course, I pre-drilled holes and then put the deck screws into that to put it into place. For the top rail, I used a 2x2 board as well and cut the corners at a 45-degree angle and then just screwed that into the 2x2 post that was vertical. For the netting for the fence, I originally installed a black plastic mesh that was supposedly bunny proof. But they ultimately ended up kind of sneaking under it and starting to rip it just by maneuvering through some places I hadn't stapled all the way. So I found a much better solution. That only lasted about a year. Although that product's cheaper, I would highly recommend a different option. I wanted to show you the mesh I ended up using that has worked way better. This is that vinyl coated wire. and I used just exterior screws with a little washer to hold them in place. I also found that these screws, these are roofing screws used to adhere like corrugated roofing. They have a little washer, and then they have a rubber washer here that just helps to hold the wire in place. So I use those every few feet along, or maybe every foot along the top, and then along the bottom you can see I use some of those, and also just use some exterior screws with washers as well in some places, and just bent it around the corners. So these panels are 2 feet this way, and then I think I needed maybe, I don't know, I think I needed 2 50-foot rolls to wrap around the whole garden bed. 2 feet was perfect here. If I had made the support any higher, it wouldn't have been able to screw into both the top and the bottom. All the links for different products and cut list and other details can be found in the description. Also check out my video on how to fill a new raised garden bed or replenish them in the spring without buying the expensive bags of pre-mixed raised garden bed, but instead mixing a few things together that is great for plants and much cheaper as well. Thanks for watching.